Former President Donald Trump is promising dirt cheap gas prices, massive tax cuts, and the slashing of federal regulations if he is reelected. But it may not be so straightforward. Today, Trump unveiled his new economic plans. Let's get the latest from CNN's Kristen Holmes, who was there in New York as he was doing it. Kristen, walk us through what Trump said.
Yeah, Boris, this was really the most extensive kind of plan that he has laid out. Generally, he just talks about how his administration was better than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's administration, but now he actually had some proposals. So some top lines from that here. I think we have it up on a screen, and I can go into a little bit of detail. One was, as you said, tackling government regulations. At one point, he said that he would get rid of 10 regulations for every new regulation. He also said that Elon Musk had already agreed to lead a government efficiency commission, something that there's already been an enormous amount of pushback on. This would be a commission that looked at fraud and waste within government spending. He said that they would withdraw unspent funds from the Biden administration, and he doubled down on this idea of sweeping tariffs on imports. He said, and this is something we've heard from economists, that it wouldn't hurt inflation. It would actually help with the inflation. Economists have disagreed with that. He also embraced cryptocurrency, something we've seen him do a lot of lately. At one point, he said he wanted to make America the world capital for crypto and for Bitcoin. He also doubled down on his tax cuts, saying he wanted to make them permanent. Of course, one of the things people are going to really hone in on is something that you said, which was those dirt cheap gas prices. People are still paying quite a bit at the pump, and that's something that really matters to him. Economists are weighing in on this plan. There is a lot of pushback, but also a lot of people saying that some of this is doable. So a little bit of both here, obviously, as we look at these two plans.
Kristen Holmes, thank you so much. Let's get some analysis now with CNN economics and political commentator Catherine Rampell. Catherine, thank you so much for being with us on set, I should note.
Lucky me.
Yeah. What are your takeaways from Trump's speech?
To the extent that he said things that were coherent, and some of it was just sort of words randomly chosen out of a dictionary, yeah. I think. To the extent that he said anything that was coherent, it was kind of what we would expect. It was a promise of more income tax cuts, higher tariffs, which, by the way, tariffs are taxes. And if you look at the distribution of what he has proposed, most people would see more increase in taxes through tariffs than they would see tax cuts through income tax cuts. So some of that,
offset.
Yeah, it does. It more than gets wiped out. So you heard tariffs, taxes. You heard this government efficiency commission, which I think at best will probably do nothing. We've had lots of blue ribbon panels before. At worst, might help Donald Trump identify more enemies whom he can weaponize state power against. And then kind of more of the same deregulation, which he tried to do in the first term.
I'm curious about the distinctions between what he's laying out as an economic vision and that of Vice President Kamala Harris, because you had Goldman Sachs come out today, and in large part because of his promise to jack up tariffs, essentially say that her plan would be better for stimulating the economy, getting the economy going, helping folks that need help than his. How do you see it?
So to be clear, there are a lot of unknowns about both of their economic plans and what would actually make it into law, depending on who's in Congress, who controls both chambers of Congress anyway. I would say that there are some things in Donald Trump's plan that are obviously bad for the economy, obviously bad for inflation and GDP growth. So one of them is tariffs. That's only one. That would raise costs for consumers or raise taxes, depending on how you look at it. Another thing would be deporting a large share of the workforce. That would likely also lead to higher prices, particularly for the industries that are most dependent on a foreign-born workforce, like agriculture and food services. Politicizing the Fed, also likely to lead to higher inflation and other things that his advisors have talked about, like devaluing the dollar. All of those would be unequivocally bad. The things like deregulation, it depends on what that actually means. And if you look at his record during his first term, he did some deregulation. He actually increased regulation on certain things, including legal immigration. So I don't know, that might be a wash. Kamala Harris's plan, again, a lot of question marks there, and some of the things I've been very critical of, like the price gouging stuff. In fairness, it probably won't become law, so maybe don't worry about it so much. Her other tax-related proposals, I think they're probably unlikely to have a major effect on the economy, in the sense that her increase in the capital gains rate, I know that people who would be paying that capital gains rate are unhappy about it, but it's probably not going to have a major consequence for the economy. Many of her proposals would help individual families, even if there isn't a big macro effect, like the baby bonus, her proposal to have a $6,000 tax credit for the parents of newborns. I don't think that's going to have a huge effect nationwide on the economy, but for some particular families, it would be very helpful.
Catherine Rampell, great to have you here with us live. Thanks so much.